the rise and fall of SKAVENBLIGHT. From minus 1860 to minus 1600 IC. The Skaven care little for the past, and do not keep any recorded history. For a Skaven, there are only two times worth thinking about. Right now, when they are not ruling the world, and very soon, when they will be. The only history the Skaven do consider worthy of thought is personal, rather than racial. One might recall such things as the glory days when he rose in power in his sect, or the despicable enemy that brought about his downfall. But rarely would he think about his origins, or any great achievements of any Skaven other than himself. They have no rituals or remembrances of their dead, for the Skaven are a jealous breed and would rather undermine their fellows than praise them for their achievements. Beyond this, they have no real or consistent concept of time or dates, nor years, generations, or ages. Therefore, the history of the Skaven remains unknown, and mostly unknowable, to the inhabitants of the old world. The Skaven themselves do not care about it, and the few humans who make an effort to collect and catalogue it find themselves facing insurmountable difficulties. The only sources available are those few humans who witness the culmination of Skaven plans and somehow manage to live to tell of it. Moreover, it is clear that many human agents, for reasons both nefarious and well-intentioned, have actively purged or altered what few records exist of the Rat Men's actions, and persecute those who search these areas too deeply. Whatever the case, what little bits of the history that can be gathered about the Skaven are often taken from scripts and folklore, from tales and legends passed down by the generations from times long ago. Little is known about the earliest records concerning the origins of the children of the Horned Rat after they overran the city that was to become SKAVENBLIGHT. Some speculate that they began to war amongst themselves for the dominance and resources of the city. Others think that they began to seek out deposits of warp stone in the tunnels beneath them. Regardless, it wasn't until around 1600 years before the coming of Sigmar that the first true Skaven began to emerge from the pits beneath the ruined city. The Skaven population during those earlier times also began to rapidly grow at an alarming rate, despite the widespread starvation, infighting, and disease outbreaks that were still rampant in the city. Pressures began to mount as food and living space became scarce commodities for the burgeoning populace, forcing the Skaven leadership to find alternative ways to expand their domain. The thought of venturing onto the surface world was discarded due to the fact that the old world was far too dangerous to travel, as it was inhabited by dangerous beasts and powerful tribes of both barbarian humans and marauding greenskins. In a grandiose scheme, the Skaven sorcerers of the city came up with a plan to open up tunnels beneath the surface and carve out an underground empire over which only they would reign supreme. All their considerable quantities of warpstone were gathered together to power a crude machine in the hope of amplifying the sorcerer's formidable power in their undertaking of a grand ritual. Deep beneath SKAVENBLIGHT, this great incantation began. The diabolical device of spinning wheels, whirling gears, and makeshift power accumulators throbbed and smoked as it absorbed and magnified raw magic for the sorcerer's ritual. The ground shook, and the groans of shifting rocks almost drowned out the shrill climax of the chanting seers. High above them, within the crumbling monuments of the city, the great bell tower tolled as the structure swayed and creaked like the mast of a ship at sea. Power began to accumulate in such vast quantities that it had the potential to break mountains and shake the very world to its foundations. Then, for the first time, but far from the last, the great machine of the SKAVEN failed them, as an unknown part of the ingenious yet imperfect device broke down at the most critical moment. In that very instant, catastrophe struck. With a blinding white flash of pure malevolence, a tidal wave of raw magical energy swept through the underground chambers of the city and unleashed its power upon the foundations of the world. Tunnels collapsed, buildings fell, and the land began to heave and tremble. The entire undermined plain surrounding SKAVENBLIGHT sank as geysers of flame erupted from the tortured ground. The damage was even more devastating as the energy swept outwards. Soon, the whole of the old world began to crumble as the titanic force erupted in all directions. The World's Edge Mountains began to buckle under the relentless assault as the surging energy crashed against the spine of the entire mountain range. Great tidal waves rose from the ocean and washed over all in their path. Long dormant volcanoes erupted to life from the east, and the lands there were forever scarred by geysers, lava, and earthquakes. To the dwarfs of the everlasting realm, their very civilization was being destroyed, right in front of their eyes. The catastrophe was an ill-prepared event, and all those that knew about that horrible time remember it only as the Time of Woes.